If you are a high performer and you do not have a vision, you are random. You are reactive. By nature, you are reactive because the environment, the world, the business, the money, the financing of your entire enterprise without vision only allows you to see in front of you. You're not seeing far enough to make big strategic choices. So when something comes in, if you have a vision, when a challenge hits you, when a wall hits, when an opportunity hits, and you don't have something to be like, does it fit up there? All you're evaluating is in the moment. It's like you have a puzzle piece, but you don't have the box to be like, does this go to this puzzle? All right, welcome back to the show. It's nearing the end of the year, and you're probably hearing all kinds of conversations about goals, about your 2025. I don't think that in entrepreneur land, we hear a lot about resolutions. It's normally goals, but you're probably hearing a lot about those things. And today we're going to talk about why having a vision is almost more important, if not the criteria, before you set goals, and why vision matters. We've been having a lot of conversations with clients who are getting ready for the new year, and forcing them to think about their vision before they set goals is, I'd say, part of our business model, but it's also a really important concept that you've got to get down where you are. Because if you just go about setting goals, I can tell you, you're going to end up just like every single one of them, where the pursuit of goals starts to actually eat you alive. It doesn't feel like you're making progress. It doesn't feel like you're aligned, like the things that you're pursuing are fulfilling or feeling good anymore. You're going to burn out. You're going to eventually feel like the problem is the goals. And I would agree that the problem is the goals. Vision is your antidote. So if you've been on a treadmill of like goal after goal after goal after goal, if you keep moving the goalpost and it's starting to feel like this whole like setting goals thing isn't for you, it's not setting goals. It's the problem. It's the goals and a lack of vision. So we're going to talk about why vision matters today.
I think without them just listening to you, if I think about what you're saying, if it's not attached to something bigger, it just becomes like a to-do list and I'm checking things off as I go, which you don't even need goals at that point. It's just a checklist.
Yeah, there's this degree of like, why do you want that? Vision answers, right? That without having a sense of why does this matter to you, I think what ends up happening is, I'll just tell you my story. I fell into this trap of like, A, more for more sake, and B, sacrificing what I actually cared about to get more for more sake. Like I'll give up what matters most just to expand on a goal that I set last year, just to expand on something that I set without really knowing my direction. And goals can be very contradictory to what we actually want, depending on when and how you set them. That's what that vision answers that question.
So would you say if the goal last year was to, 2x your business, whatever the business is, the person who's just about setting goals is then going to say, well, this year I'm going to do 5x, but there's 5x. There's never a bigger sense of why you're doing that in the first place. It's just increase the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a degree of like, let's just magnify what was done this year, right? Rather than change what was done this year, let's just magnify it. That we have seen countless times with almost every client that's walked through our door, our virtual door, that starts to get really hollow. Because,
but also it feels daunting because that means I have to work even harder.
Yeah, there exactly. There's this like sacrifice embedded in the pursuit of something without really the question of, do I want that? Or what does that get me? Right? Because I think here's how we set goals, right? We often set goals for some kind of outcome. And when we set them for some kind of outcome, what happens is, especially like a revenue goal, right? Because almost everyone listening is a business owner or aspires to be one. If you set like a revenue
and that's
goal,
the easiest one to like, let's magnify.
Yeah. Right. And quantifiably,
correct.
It is aspirational to say like, we want more revenue. Sure. But the challenge with that comes in with, if you double and you haven't really thought about like, what does more revenue get me? Then you end up toppling down the stairs that you just built because you don't end up climbing anymore. You probably work more. You're not taking vacations. You're not really thinking about like, well, do I spend more time with my family or am I in better shape?
Yeah. Like what I hear is it's not looking at what I get more of. It's going to quickly become, what am I getting less of what I already have in order to make that bigger?
Yeah. Like what's the cost of more revenue?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's the suffering piece and sacrifice.
So here's where it gets, it can get very personal. And I would encourage you listening to like, think about what it is that you want. But let's say you doubled your revenue. Let's say you tripled your revenue. Let's say you 10x your revenue. What would you want then? If you say, well, I just want more revenue, you're lying. You have not thought this through. There has to be something that more revenue gets you. So if it's like, well, I want to hire someone that could take away these tasks, great. That's what you're measuring for. If it's, I would really love to be able to cut my day off at 3 so I could go to my kids' soccer games on Tuesday night. Great. That's what you want more of, right? There's always this like story that is embedded in this larger narrative around like more revenue gets me something. And to an extent, I believe in it, right? It's true. The more revenue you have, the more choices you can make. We're just trying to say that if you haven't thought through to the choices you want to make, you lack vision. You lack something beyond the revenue goal. And revenue is great. But if you don't put the revenue into the directed resources or the redeployment of resources, or you don't take the revenue and allow it to change your organization, you're just going to end up stuck in it again, right? You're just going to get stacked back in the same deck over and over and over. And all of a sudden you work 40 all year long. You're working 40-hour weeks when you started. The whole point was, if I double revenue, I won't have to work 40 hours.
Because you'll end up saying, well, not yet. Because I'm not there yet. We hear that all the time as well.
Yeah. My belief is that without vision, you cannot set goals. Now, I did, and I didn't have vision. And I did when I didn't know what I wanted. So I'm not saying that it's like an impossible task, but here's what ends up happening. I don't think I set goals. I think what I set were like, they were like proof points. I wanted to prove that I was capable. That's what it was. It wasn't an actual goal for me. It wasn't something I was striving for. It was just something that would allow me to anchor myself in a confident way, in an articulate way amongst a larger audience. It was just validation.
Yeah, almost a comparison to the other.
So I made my targets in context to everyone else. It wasn't about like, what do I want in 5 years? What do I want? We do all of our vision work in 3 years. I think 5 is too far, but whether it's 5 for you, 10 for you, 60 for you, I think if you don't have that, it's very difficult to pick your goals, your metrics for this year, because they might contradict. I actually think they often did for me. So I would,
the goals would contradict each other.
So like if I'm pursuing one, I'm looking at another one of them and I'm like, I think I have to give that up to get this.
Because they weren't aligned with a specific direction.
They had no context to a vision. A vision gives us a criteria, right? It really helps us understand where I'm going, and do all things point to that, right? It's sort of triangular in nature, and we're pointing to the tip of the arrow. And a vision will force some of the discomfort that it creates. How do I say it? Because you have a vision, it will help you when you are in a position to make an uncomfortable choice, uncomfortable decision around what gets cut. Otherwise, you waffle for too long, and you'll like tolerate and standardize like conflict, or you just won't make a choice at all. And vision will force you to be like, what is the choice that I need to make here? Right? Vision will force the decision and give you the answer pretty soon.
Even if it is a difficult decision, it'll still give you the decision.
So the best way I can describe it is like this. If I say, all right, in 3 years, I can imagine myself running an Ironman, then I have to look at the choices today and figure out if my choices align me with that vision. And if they don't, I have to have the real discussion about, like, is that what I see or is it not? And I think vision is more powerful than just a goal, because it has some sort of identity attached to it, right? Like I can see myself in that.
Yes.
Not just finishing an Ironman, but the person that does that.
Yes.
And by seeing my world, obviously I'm not just, this is the only thing I'm doing, right? I'm still working. I'm still doing all these things, but I can imagine a world where me in it, I'm running an Ironman. And as a result of that, I can look at what choices need to be made today to help me angle that way.
Do you think that, because I hadn't thought about this before, is that one of the reasons you would say it is important to have a vision, is because it is about the person you're becoming versus something that would be more external, I guess?
Yeah. Goals have a very external tendency. And if the goal,
yeah, like even running the Ironman or whatever you do with an Ironman is still an external goal.
Still external, right? It is aligned though with vision, right? It's aligned with who I'm becoming. It's aligned with the person.
The person you have to be that person.
Because I'm seeing myself do that.
Yes.
Right. So
yeah,
I think what happens is we set a goal and we don't actually see ourselves in that picture. Like we call this entrepreneurial blindness, right? You can set all the targets, but if you can't see yourself evolving into the person that becomes this, that brings the vision to life, you're blind. You're literally just throwing darts. And I've done it. I get it.
Yeah, it's interesting how many people come not even aware of who they are.
Right. So here's why, if we go back to like vision helps you make an uncomfortable choice in the Ironman, I'm going to have to start making like, I don't need to make all these choices right now. I don't need to like go train, 30 hours a day, but I do need to start angling in, right? I can't just eat like shit all the time. I can't skip workouts.
And then the day before, well, now I got to do it tomorrow.
Yeah. And vision allows us to slowly play the game of chess and make choices. But if that's my vision and I'm like undetermined, if I'm undecided about, hey, do I sign up for this like triathlon program? Vision will dictate in some ways that I do. Don't need to sign up and start right away, but I do need to sign up for this program. And if I don't have that vision, if I really can't see it, it's easy for me to be like, well, I don't know, like I'll get around to it. And, this example takes place in a lot of ways. When we work with clients, one of the things we have them outline is like a dream trip, right? Sometimes that's with family. Sometimes it's with significant others. Sometimes that's by themselves. But it's really interesting because if they can see it, right, we really work on the visualization of it. Once they see it and they can see themselves there, then it's not really that hard to be like, book it. Doesn't mean you need to go right now. You might not be going for a year. You might not be, but like you can book your tickets a year ahead, right? You can organize the trip a year ahead and you can really start slowly making your way into something. We get to vision slow, not fast.
And bear in mind, I'm speaking about nothing I know. I don't know anything about this. If I want to be the Ironman guy, I'm going to do the Ironman. I don't know what that entails. I'm not going to go and look up how do I run a marathon, because that's not necessarily the person I need to be in order to be the Ironman person. So if I start training for a marathon, that's when I'm going to start to find myself way off course.
Yep.
Versus where the Ironman is trying to take me.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you are an Ironman guy or you're a marathon guy.
And you have to run a marathon in Ironman, I have no idea.
Yeah. There's similarities because you're in an Ironman, you're running a marathon basically. But I think to what you're saying, what's happening is you're targeting differently, right? Your strategy is different. And ultimately that's where a vision is important. When new CEOs come into like a Starbucks, right? They've recently had a new CEO. I'm thinking I'm going to run the marathon, but I'm training to eat the hot dog eating contest. Much better example.
Yeah.
Those goals are contradictory, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to win this year's hot dog eating contest and I'm going to run, a
right.
sub 3 hour marathon.
Right.
Yeah. That's where contradiction exists.
Right. Starbucks, though, you were going to talk about.
Well, because those goals are not attached to a vision, right? Like who are you? Are you the guy that does hot dog competitions or are you the guy that does marathons? Like, who are you? What's your identity? So like Starbucks got a new CEO, and the first thing that CEOs are required to do is really think about their vision, right? So if the Starbucks visionary comes in and says, we want to get back to being a neighborhood coffee shop where we really embody community and people can come in and stay and know their barista's name and like all these things, that requires the entire organization to take on different shape. New culture, new standards, new systems, new hiring, new firing. Everything shifts around like doing that. On the vice versa, if he says, we want people in and out faster, we want people to not stay here, we want to shrink our footprint, but we want to increase our volume. Very different actions, right? Vision dictates your actions. And those two strategies.
Which that model hasn't worked for them.
Correct. Yeah. the latter has not worked for them.
Yeah. Which is why there's a new CEO.
Yes. So strategically, I think we can all agree why vision helps us do that, right? It changes our strategy and then it changes our goals. But if you make the goal first without the vision, you end up flip-flopping. And it's very easy as a leader to go like goal to goal to goal to goal to goal. And all of a sudden what happens is you've like whiplashed your organization. Your team doesn't trust you. They're going to be asking you for vision. Your team will never directly be like, very seldom will they be like, we need a vision. A good team will, right? Someone that understands why vision's important might be able to do that. But I think in general, teams will just make reference to being lost or feeling like uncertain because that language is not very familiar.
We'll use, because I go to Starbucks regularly, so I know this one. If the model, and the model very much changed during COVID, where everything had to be in and out, and mobile orders really took off during that time. Drive-through increased even further. If the employees have now gotten used to that, and the vision is now over here where it's about the experience, it's about the community, it's about people staying and being there, the whole mindset shift has to change with all the employees as well. That how do we keep all of this still important, that the people that want to come in and out continue to come in and out and have this experience of the person who wants to come in and be a part of this vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really important part of the equation. Now, what we have really honed in on is making a holistic vision with a guy like a Starbucks CEO, right? Because if you look at something like a business vision, it's also very easy to sacrifice your entire life to bring a business vision to life. So if a business vision helps you articulate to your team, your board, your C-suite, your leadership, your middle management, all the way down, the same vision can, if built correctly, help you do the same thing, communicate with your family, your friends, your peers, your trainer, your entire life becomes organized by the same principles.
Do you want your family to be in and out like the mobile order pickup?
Yeah, I would assume that most of us, right, even high performing executives and CEOs don't want, even if they feel they have to, they don't want to give up everything that matters to them with their family, their health, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. The reason we get into business is for a better lifestyle. We want to have a trainer. We want to travel the world. We want to take our family to nice things. We want to involve our friends in our wins and celebrate with them. Like, it's not far-fetched to say that most entrepreneurs wanted that when they first started, right? No one was like, hey, I'll trade all this responsibility for a lesser lifestyle. We wanted to build ourselves out, right? We wanted to hire our replacements so that we could go have a good life. That's what we wanted.
Which is why they got in there in the first place.
Yep.
Right. Which is interesting. They already had, that person already had a vision of what it meant to be an entrepreneur.
Definitely. Started with vision, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It always starts with vision, because what we envision is a life that's better.
Yeah.
You know, I would go travel. I would go visit my family. I'd love to see my mom more. I'd love to, I'd love to get in shape. I want to run Ironmans, a couple times a year. Like I love cooking. I want to cook more.
Is it the pivot though, where someone has to, and we've talked about this with clients, it might initially start as running from something. There's a vision for something else, but they're running from where they were. But there's going to eventually have to be a pivot as to this is what you're working towards.
Yeah. The best way I can think of to mention that is our vision usually is here's what I don't want, not clarity on what we do want. It's actually way easier to say, here's all the things I don't want. I don't want to work in this.
I want out of corporate life.
Yeah. I don't want to have to put in 2-week notice. I don't want to have to stay in my place. I don't want to be pinched for cash at the end of the month. Like, you name it. And that gives us a lot of like surge energy, like a lot of frustration and friction energy, but it's not clarity. And what we do is usually meet with someone who has gone down that path for long enough that they're like, dude, I'm burnt out. Like I'm toasting everything I touch because I'm burnt out. So the next evolution of that is to help regain a vision, help reestablish a vision because they've lost it, right? The metric really is that you've become like your vision is blurry. The more blurry you are, the harder it is to discern between objects and bump into shit. So the fun part becomes like, okay, what do you want? Let's sit down and actually map this out. And what's really interesting, just to stay on the lens of business at the forefront, is that I've probably talked to like 50 CEOs in the last 2 weeks. And most of them, like when pressed about this, because it was a couple different speaking gigs, most of them were like, I would not want to not work. They did not say, I want to like retire, right? What they said was, I'd like to work less. Rather than work 50 hours a week, I would love to just keep it to 35.
It would be interesting to see the percentage of the person who's in corporate life where it's about, I want to retire.
Get me out.
Versus the person who, I want to work less.
Yeah. Please get me out.
Yeah.
I think CEOs generally love to work. We love to be productive. We love to like get our hustle on, right? We love the pursuit of more and the hunt for the next deal, the next level up. That's just a different caliber of person, right? But if you imagine that, okay, so you're working 50 and you want to work 35. Well, I can tell you time and time again, almost every single client, when asked about this, and I'm like, what would you do with the other 15 hours? What I usually get is, I don't know. There's a lack of
I think I've heard it so many times.
And maybe there's something definitive, right? But if we assume that your 35 hours are still split over 5 days, right? You're still running an organization. That's not 15 hours like on a Sunday, right? That's like 3 hours, 4 hours a day. So where do you put that?
Which is a hefty chunk of time.
It's a hefty chunk of time and it's enough to pursue something meaningful. But if you just say, well, I'm going to fill it with the least line of resistance, you're not going to feel like you're growing. You're not going to feel like you're moving forward. You're not going to feel like the energy that you have has value. So the high production CEO,
you'll eventually slide into just kind of being a sloth of some sort.
It creates tension, right? Because in your career, you're like, I want to go far and fast. And then in your personal life, you feel like a sloth. So what we're trying to do is say, keep your high performance in your career, also put your high octane into something more meaningful in your personal life. Let's have a vision for your personal life too. And now these two things are complementary where you almost get to toggle. Anybody that's a high performer, you know what I'm about to say because you have been here. I feel more charged up if I'm going 90 miles an hour at work and then also 90 miles an hour in my personal life. And it feels like a break, even though I'm still moving thousands and thousands of feet per second. I feel better than if I go 90 to 0. Like I want to have a really productive week. I don't want to sit on my couch for 9 hours. That's not what I want.
I would think that's the risk of the person who thinks there's me who works and me who's at home, where there's just me. And so I'm going to move at 90 regardless of where I'm at, which is where vision comes in. But I'm moving in the same direction in both areas rather than feeling I have to like completely turn off when I get home.
Yeah. Let me give you some examples of how I've seen this in clients, right? Guy says, hey, I have a high performing job and I'm getting paid a lot, but I'm trapped. I'm like, okay, well then before you go quit your job and try to like start a fund and do all this like syndicating, let's
not
imagine,
not a GoFundMe.
Let's imagine what your life looks like. Let's talk about what you imagine the life that you want to build looks like, because you're about to start over, right? So we do all this work and outline a lifestyle that's meaningful. And in it, we talk about ski trips, elk hunting, relationship, possible marriage and kids, like all these things that were meaningful to be like, this is where I want to angle. I'm really excited to start working this direction. Once we had a vision of that and could see the things that he had to practice and train and get good at and work on communicating and like all these different functions, he naturally started to grow that way. And so we run a 6-month program. Within like 3 months of beginning that work, he was like, you know what? I don't know if this job is actually conflicting at all. This job might actually be like fueling. I really like these components. What I hated was that when I left my high performance job, I had no direction, no purpose, no real connection to like what I was after. I had no worthy cause to continue to grow into.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating is like, once we got there,
is that pretty I mean, we do work with high end people, so it might be where they can do it in the job, but it's really the life piece where it.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, if I took a sweeping average of our clients, they're killing it professionally. They might not be excited about where their business is, right?
But they've done it well.
Right? So there's just a different caliber there. And maybe you have, right? Maybe you have listening. But you might share this. Once we got to a place where it was like, okay, I know where I'm going personally, then we could also start to ask the question, where do you want to go professionally? It was almost like we liberated that side. And then we could start asking, like, do you actually want to go do this? Like, do you want to be the fun guy? Do you want to like go buy land and like develop it? And it was like, you know what? I don't think I wanted to do that. Why did I want to do that? And I said to him, look, man, I think you wanted to do that because of the money it produced. And as a result, you would have had probably an equally tough time because you would have had to dive triple down and you wouldn't have gotten all this personal stuff. And somewhere along the line, I've fallen prey to this. I'm sure anybody listening can, if not directly relate, knows somebody that has, a high performer that has, where if we change our professional pursuit, hoping that we get our personal satisfaction, it never comes.
You're essentially saying, there's bleeding over here. I need to triage here, and then we can work our way back. Yeah. Is what you're doing essentially.
Yeah, and in a comical way, it's almost like, hey, my like ankle is bleeding, but I got a new hand bandage.
right.
You know, my
shirt's
this? Good.
Yeah.
I upgraded my wardrobe. You know, like hold on, man, these things don't relate.
Yes, the foot's hanging off.
Right. And you know, the reason that vision matters again is because it guides our criteria. So when we had a vision of like, okay, this is your lifestyle, you ski, you hunt, you do all this is your lifestyle. It forced different action. All of a sudden, certain friendships don't make sense. Certain investments of time don't make sense. Like if you really want to ski and hunt all the time, instead of going on the weekend to like track every brewery in Denver, why don't you go shoot arrows, right? Go practice for the hunt that you want to do. Go practice, go get on the mountain, go ski. And pretty quickly, again, it was just like, oh man, there's momentum. Like I feel like I'm growing, but it will force you to exit certain things and it will force you to sign up for certain things that you couldn't do otherwise. You wouldn't know to do because it's not always very like front of mind, right? We're like, I'm going to hunt later when I retire. Like, why do you need to wait? Now, under this concept of vision first, we say, okay, what's the long-term vision? Okay, you love to hunt when you're 60. How about we start hunting now at 38? And what do you have to begin doing? Well, you have to go learn to shoot a bow and arrow.
Hold a gun.
Yeah, this was bow and arrow, but like now you have to learn it, right? You now have to sign up. You now have to commit. You now have to invest. You now have to try. You now have to go through the gritty process that is going to create that end goal. And no longer can you hide from the reality that if you don't pursue it, you will not get your vision.
Because you're essentially creating like muscle memory now for elk hunting in 10 years. But in order to, I mean, I know this from playing an instrument. When I stopped playing for several years, clarinet, it takes a lot of mouth work.
Yeah.
In your lips. And I could barely get a note out once I gave it up for a number of years. I mean, I could get it back much quicker when I did it. but you still lose it.
Same with, so I did trumpet. Trumpet was the same way. I think the same is true with sports, right? If I play soccer every night, I'm going to have a very different play level than if I play once a year. You can get it back fast, but still,
you'll feel it the next day.
Yeah.
If you're just doing it once a year.
So in this time of year, I think most people are rushing with like, what do we do this year? Set a new goal. What do we do this year? Set a new goal. What do we do this year? Set a new goal. And the problem with that.
And if you're not yet, it's coming. I mean, we're in December, so it's coming.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. Yeah. Some people haven't even thought about it yet.
January 1st. Wow. What am I going to do this year?
Now we just aim. So for those of you that are ahead, I'm willing to bet you're a high performer. I'm willing to bet you're getting after it. I'm willing to bet that you're dealing with this because everyone's dealing with this. If you are a high performer and you do not have a vision, you are random. You are reactive. By nature, you are reactive because the environment, the world, the business, the money, the financing of your entire enterprise without vision only allows you to see in front of you by like 10 feet. You're not seeing far enough to make big strategic choices. So when something comes in, if you have a vision, when a challenge hits you, when a wall hits, when an opportunity hits, and you don't have something to be like, does it fit up there? All you're evaluating is in the moment. Like, it's like you have a puzzle piece, but you don't have the box to be like, does this go to this puzzle?
Well, yeah, and you essentially end up doing what everyone else says they're doing, and this is what you should do as well. If you rather than connect, I would say using the Starbucks example, Dunkin' Donuts is very much about in and out, get out. It's mobile. It's designed that way, and Starbucks kind of adopted that same mentality, that same vision, and didn't work for that. It's a different organization.
It is. And I think Starbucks has a different, intended to have a different outcome.
Yeah.
Right. Dunkin' Donuts, you know what you get. And
correct.
That's what it is.
Correct.
The people that go to Dunkin' Donuts know what they want. They order coffee and they go.
Yep.
Like, there isn't designed to be anything else. And
it's Starbucks not designed to be an experience. Yeah.
Yeah. They've articulated new visions a couple times in the last several decades. What comes to mind is how incredibly difficult it is to stop an entrepreneur from pivoting so much without a vision. And I'm shooting the arrow straight for the heart when I say this. If you're listening and you're a pivot monster, you lack vision.
I'm only laughing because we've seen so many people like that.
And your team is probably getting really frustrated. You're probably feeling the effects of a lack of focus anyway. But the answer is vision. Like, the reason vision matters so much is it dictates what stays and what goes. It helps you narrow the option set, or at least demands that you make a choice about your options rather than stay static. And, in business, I think you're either growing or decaying, and it's okay to do both. There's seasons, right? Just like the rest of life. It's also important to say, where are we going? And
because I think for the entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs can handle like instability, or that's where that comes to mind. But your typical employee, they're working for stability.
Yeah.
And I think you have to keep that. They don't do well with whiplash.
Well, I'll say chaos.
Right? Yeah, it's a great word.
And almost every one of our clients has said to me vocally, not like just in passing, like out loud, but I do better in chaos. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. I appreciate that you can do that. And I appreciate that I can handle chaos.
Correct.
And if you bring that to your team, they are not often equipped to handle chaos.
Correct.
So you can be the guy that navigates chaos for them, but that's what a vision is, right? A visionary. This is our transformational process. You start as a business leader, you end as a visionary. As a visionary, you're able to interpret chaos and then communicate stability to your team. That's what you do.
Or you better have someone that can.
Yeah. Or if you take chaos and you don't have a medium that can help with that, an integrator or something like that, and you just, instead of interpreting chaos, you just dig into chaos, and then everyone else behind you is like, dude, they're just getting crushed by chaos and the overflow. One, your business is way less stable than you think. Two, your team is probably way less stable than you think. And three,
and they're going to burn out a lot quicker than you are.
And three, the cost of that is so silent. It's so silent. Like, it's hard to like look at that on a P&L, right? You might see the indicators of it, like, hey, revenue's down or whatever, or growth is slow. But no one on your P&L is not going to have a line item that's like burnout, $5,600,000 of.
Yeah. Look at how your retention rate is.
Yeah. It's nuts. I think I just made up a number, $5,600,000. But you're not going to see a line item that's like, oh, well, 16% of our business was lost to burnout. 18% of our inventory was deemed unsellable because of bad culture, right? Which is ultimately what we're talking about, the standards and systems that leaders instill. So again, vision will dictate this. When we walk people through the career pillar, we also have to verify that your career pillar doesn't directly contradict with your time pillar, your health pillar, or your circle, like your family, fears, all that. So we do a lot of checks there. But when we build out your career pillar, what we're asking about is culture, your team, how you lead, the finances. How do you feel every day? Like, are you excited to be in here? How many hours do you work? How do you clock out? Who handles responsibilities? How do you show up for problems? Like, there's such a depth of a vision to really get it's a story, right? It's a visual representation of your journey.
And I would say not only how you see yourself as leader, but how do others, what's the experience of your employees as you being the leader?
They're a big part of the story.
And a lot of times I've learned that you're the last one to find out that things are happening the way they are because they don't want to express that. Again, they look for stability. But how would they respond to that question?
Yeah, there's a rumor mill that you're not invited to.
Correct. And for a lot of it, that's great. You don't need to.
Yeah. I had a team sit me down and be like, dude, you're like whiplashing us all over the place. And I learned a valuable lesson because they told me. I think, not to their fault, I didn't learn about that until late.
A lot of times that person doesn't know until that person's leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an exit interview.
Yep.
Or it's beyond the exit interview and it's
Correct.
like 3 months later and again, it's like rumor mill that you weren't invited to, kind of thing.
Yep.
But your turnover, your employee problems are your problems, like as a leader. And vision does that. Vision will help you answer their challenges. Vision will help you talk to them and recruit high talent. Vision will help you maintain a sense of progress when things get hard. Vision will help you navigate when things are chaotic. Like, vision is the answer. And I've not seen a leadership problem that is not answered by vision. A leadership problem, like, I don't mean like, hey, we're not hitting our sales numbers. I'm talking about like, we are having conflicts in leadership. Well, you're probably having conflicts in leadership because no one knows the way. No one knows how to go. Oftentimes it's like, well, I want to grow, or the like CEO might say, hey, I want to grow. And the C-suite's like, we don't want to sacrifice. Like, we're doing really well. The growth rate is really healthy. We don't want to sacrifice. But the visionary can't paint the picture of like what it looks like, right? There's conflicts in like strategy. Vision is your answer. If there's conflicts in personnel, vision is your answer.
And is that vision being communicated in a way that person understands? I think that's often the bigger issue.
Agreed.
It's not being communicated in a way that person understands it.
And I'd say that's a secondary problem. If your first problem is you don't have a vision, you definitely can't communicate it.
Well,
right?
True, because there's nothing to
communicate. But like, this happens all the time where even there's internal conflict with the CEO. Do I grow or do I not grow? And the question isn't, do I grow, do I not grow? I don't think that's the appropriate question. The question is, how do you want to grow? You can still grow and work less. That's what scale is, right? You can still grow and enjoy the process. that's really, I think, a goal for a lot of us is to not hate the work. If you own your own company and you hate your business and you hate your day to day and you hate your job, bro, you did it wrong. Like, what the fuck was the point? If we did all the sacrifice to build our own engines,
then you might be the one in the wrong seat.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what were you aiming for? That again, vision, right? What were you aiming? I guarantee you did not set out to say, you know what, guys, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to build a business and I'm definitely going to hate it. Like your friends would be like, I don't think you get it. Even someone that can communicate that they're afraid for you or they don't believe in your pathway or whatever can at least sit down and be like, well, I mean, that seems really risky, but if you get all that, why would you not do it? Right? There's something that you are angling for. And I would implore you at the end of the year, before you go in and start setting goals and like mapping out what you did this year and then expanding it out, you actually sit down and you're like, where am I aiming? Where am I going? And then you have a compass to help you navigate when you get lost. You have a compass to help you in situations where you don't know how to make a choice. Just like a GPS does this all the time, right? It's like recalculating.
How many times a week do you use a GPS?
And every time the GPS says recalculating, it is because it has an endpoint, right? It has a goal.
Right. It only knows
it has a vision, right?
But it's still going the same direction.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a left because there was an accident over here.
Yeah. Here's the better way to say it, right? A GPS will recalculate the goal, but it always maintains the same vision, right? I want to connect it to our language. So GPS holds the destination as the vision. And then as you get off track, it'll recalculate a goal to get you back on track, right? It's like, hey, you had to go because of a detour. Okay, here's the goal. Get to the highway and take exit 104. Even though before the goal was take exit 102, now it reestablishes a goal, but it never loses sight of that vision. A GPS does this all the time and it does it really well. And that's what entrepreneurs need to have, a fixed point that allows you to recalculate your goals, remeasure, reestablish, and get back on track.
I like that. That's a good way to describe it.
I feel good about that one.
Because I've been in the car many times where recalculating.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know where you're taking me.
Yeah, you have to trust. You sometimes have to trust the GPS.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, you're off track. Nothing you can really do about it. So look, at the end of the day, we want you to take some time before you go into the new year, slow down a little bit and really ask yourself some deep questions. If you want one of our tools on this, jump on Instagram, jump on our website, like you could send me an email. My email is pretty public. Just do aaronvelke@gmail. Like send me a note that you would like our career specific vision tool and I'll send it to you. I got no issue sharing it with you. What people pay for with us is the implementation. I got no issue making sure that you have some tools. And we have the entire spectrum of tools that are somewhat readily available to anyone that really wants them. What I can't offer you, though I would encourage you to focus on it, is to block the time. I can't make you do the shitty work, the hard work that is sitting down, slowing down, and making sure that you're actually working on this before you set goals, right? Set your vision. So we've got tools for you. We've got ways to assist you. If you'd like that, send us a message. We got a really exciting event coming up called the Vision Summit with a great partner and some really awesome, exciting, uplifting tools to help you really dial in your vision. If you'd like to learn more about it, go to Aaron Velke. That's AARON, V as in vision, ELKY.com/retreats. And you can learn all about the Vision Summit. You can learn all about what you're going to get from that event because we're going to make sure that you actually have vision, that you're actually clear, and that you're able to identify goals that take you to it. So we are grateful that you're here. Send us a note. Let us know what you want to learn about when it comes to vision. We're going to start sharing more and more of the behind the scenes work that we're doing and the processes. But your feedback goes a long way into how we record these. Actually, this episode came from a couple conversations this week I had with listeners who said, hey, Like, why? I don't understand why vision is important. Why are you focused on vision? And hopefully this conversation helps you understand why it's so important, but also understand why it's worth taking the time at the end of the year to settle in. We'll see you on the next episode. Here's your reminder to get out of your own way.